Hi everyone, welcome back to Minds Market Media. I'm Charles Lawson, and today we're going to be doing a video that is quite a long time coming. So around 9-10 years ago, one of the first videos I made was how to cut and polish gems without machines. Now that was focusing more on trying to cut something a bit more analogous to a faceted stone, getting the flat facets. And I did actually promise I was going to do a follow-up on how to do cabochons using turquoise. Now, this time I've decided to include something a little bit extra. We've got a little bit of Australian opal here as well, just so we have something a little bit harder. So the first video we had fluorite, that was hardness 4. Turquoise, that's around sort of 5 or 6. Opal, that's going to be around that 6 mark. So kind of going from 4 in the previous video to 5 to 6. And with the opal, I'm just going to be polishing a window because that does take quite some time to do. But yeah, we're going to try and cut a cabochon from one of these pieces of turquoise. Okay, so what do you need to get started? So everything I have here is what we're going to be using today. So with the sandpaper, what we're going to start off with first is a 60 grit. Now I've taken the 60 grit just because I did try out some of the opal by hand yesterday, and it was pretty hard getting through it with the 240 grit, but this is where I would normally like to start because the 60 grit is going to leave a lot of scratches. Then we go up to the 600 grit, then we go to the 1200 grit, and lastly we're going to finish up with the 3000 grit. Now this is important that you need to get the wet and dry sandpaper. To get that nice shiny finish, we're going to be using Cerium oxide. Now this is the main one that you'll be using for your sort of quartz varieties or your silicate varieties, so this is great for opal and that kind of thing. When you get into the harder stones, then you need to start looking at diamond powder. Now this is a 50,000 grit diamond powder. Both of these are quite easy to get off places like Amazon and that kind of thing, so not too hard to get these days. And then on top of that, we have some doweling. Now this is going to help you actually hold on to the gemstones, so I'm going to cut this down into little hand-sized pieces for dopping our gemstones. On top of that, we're going to be using the glue. Now with the glue, you don't necessarily need to have any particular one. Just find something that you like. So I'm going with a Loctite 60-second glue, and as long as you can remove it, so with something like this we would usually use heat to remove it, you're going to be okay. For the final polish, we need some felt. Now this is the self-adhesive felt, so this is quite good because it's very easy to get, it's cheap, and we can stick it down to make a more sort of solid surface. Okay, and I also have a piece of plywood that I've just completely cut to size, and this is what we're going to use to stick our felt onto, so we have a nice solid surface to do the polishing on. So we have a couple of small containers that I can use to mix my polishing compounds. We have some water, we have a Scotch-Brite, just soft sponge. Now this is going to be what we use to basically create a soft surface underneath the sandpaper so we can get a bit more of that curve. Cloth for cleanup. And that is about it for what we need so far, so why don't we get started and get stuck in. Okay, so this is our polishing pad for the polishing powders. For the actual cutting process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with just this. This is actually a dry sandpaper, so I think I might actually use it with a little bit of water just so I don't have the silica running around. But the next thing we have to do is choose which piece of turquoise we want to cut. So we have 2 pieces of turquoise to choose from, and now it's quite important actually to pick the right shape to start with. I think when you're starting out, you want something that's going to be quite close to the shape that you want to actually finish with. Now this other piece, it's a bit chunky, whereas this one kind of has some flat sides in it. I think I can probably work this to be the right sort of shape without too much trouble. When it comes to the opal, however, so we have a few pieces here, and I think that really of these 3, I could polish a window into all 3 of them, but this one's already got a bit of a flat side on it. You can see the original side on there, but I think that what I'll do here is we will just put a decent border around it, like make it a nicer shape, and then just polish a nice window into there. And yeah, I think that will give us a nice little demonstration of how to cut the opal. Now I'll start with the turquoise. Now we're going to start with the 60 grit here. Now like I said, this is probably a bit more hardcore than I would normally like to start with, but because of doing it by hand, like I said, it's just going to be a bit easier if we start on this quite harsh grit. So I'm going to add a little bit of water, even though it isn't an actual wet and dry sandpaper, but I just don't want to have the dust coming up basically. So the first thing I'm going to do is try and cut a flat face on this so that I've got a nice base to work. So that's probably the least nice face, so we'll start with this bit here. So what I'm doing with this while I'm cutting it is I'm trying not to go in the same direction. I'll try and do circles, I'll try and go one way, kind of the other way, just because you don't really want to have all of the scratches forming in the same place. So it's usually better to kind of mix up how you're doing it. I think we're pretty close. Okay, so this is pretty close now. This is, it's not a perfect oval, but this is probably close enough to good enough. Now we're gonna do the opal. We're gonna get this ready. So all I'm gonna do here is just clean up the edges, just so it gets a bit of a nice profile on there. And it's got a bit of grinding that's already happened on it, so I'm just gonna flatten off that face and we'll make that window. Next thing to do though is to give this a clean, just so we're not cross-contaminating between the two types of stones. This is a harder stone, so it shouldn't really matter, but best practice is to usually give it a quick clean in between goes. Okay, so that's nice and clean, so let's get onto the opal. Okay, so I think we're looking pretty close there. So with this piece you can see all I've really done is just kind of smooth off the edges, just so it's not quite so rough. But with this one we're going more just for that sort of windowed look, which is also why I'm keeping that back natural. We'll see how that goes with the dopping. I might actually not even need to dop this one might be easier to do by hand. So now that we've finished up the preforming, we've got the basic shapes that we're after. We have the turquoise and we have the opal. The next thing we're going to do is the dopping. So with the dop sticks, we have the two pieces of doweling. Now I have 4mm here. I think this might be a little bit small, so I think we'll probably go with the 6mm. I think that's a pretty good size. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to cut this down to probably like a sort of 10cm. Anything that's sort of comfortable for you to hold in your hand. Basically, this is just a way to kind of keep everything steady while you're working on the stone. So let's go and cut this piece up. Okay, so time to start dopping. So with the two stones, we have the two dop sticks ready to go. But to be honest, I think what I'm actually going to do is just do the opal by hand. So the opal, you can see here that it's got quite a sort of lumpy back to it. And I do want to keep that sort of nice natural shape on the back, because that creates quite an interesting effect when you look through the little window. So this one I think we'll actually do by hand, because all I have to do is just rub it that way, maybe do the edges a bit, and I think, you know, that's not too bad. But for the turquoise, that we're definitely going to dop, because that's going to get us a lot more nice even finish, just because it's going to be easier to control and just make life a whole lot easier. So we're just going to use Loctite on this one. I'm just going to rub it on the back there. Now it's going to take a little bit longer than 60 seconds probably, because I'm going to use quite a lot of glue, because I really want a good bond there. I want it to come down a little bit and have a nice hold, because it's not a particularly big surface that it's getting glued onto there. So we're just going to pop that one on. So as for this, I do have a little bit of time to actually get it right. And basically what I'm trying to do is just center it exactly in the middle of the piece. That in the middle of the dop stick. That's looking pretty good, I reckon. Okay, so I think we've got a pretty good bond here between the dop stick and the turquoise. Opal's being left as it is by itself. So now the next step is going to be continuing the cutting process. So we used our fingers before because we were just trying to get the basic shape. Now we've got on the dop stick, we're going to be using a piece of Scotch-Brite. Now what this is actually for is actually to go underneath the sandpaper to give it that sort of soft sort of surface, and that's going to make it a lot easier to get a nice smooth curve. When you're doing it against a flat hard surface, you kind of tend to end up with like little sort of flat surfaces all over it. You can do it on just a flat hard surface, but I think to get that nice smooth rounded edge, I think we're going to go with something a little bit more soft. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our first piece of wet and dry sandpaper. This is the 240. And I'm going to cut it just a bit bigger than the piece of Scotch-Brite, so we've got something to sort of hold it down with. So, and what I've also got is a few rubber bands, and you could just hold it down, but I think this might just make it a little bit easier, so we'll just pop that one over there. Okay, we've got our water, we've got our turquoise, and we're going to add a little bit to the wet and dry sandpaper here. And now with this one, I got it pretty close when I was doing it on the 60, but that's going to have left some pretty big scratches. So I'm now going to use this 240 just to get it down to basically the exact sort of size and shape that I want. Same sort of thing, just same sort of pressure. But now because I've got the dop stick, I can actually really sort of like angle it in all the different directions that I want to get it at. And this is going to allow me to get a nice, smooth, even surface. Straight away I can see it's already sort of taking out a lot of the bumps. And one thing that I have actually noticed is if you go to the side a bit and you have it coming down, what that's going to allow you to do, move to the edge here, is basically get along that sort of bottom corner there. Because if you're doing it like this, you're never going to get quite down to the edge. So if you can have it down like this sort of angle, so it's actually the flat and you're going that way, you're going to be able to get a lot more of that bottom edge on it. So that's kind of a bit of a painful bit to do later, so we'll get that done now. But you can see the nice thing here is that basically it's taking somewhat of the contour of the piece. So it's going in, and that's allowing you to actually cut it on a curve. Whereas, like I was saying before, if I was doing it here, each time I'm sliding it across, I'm creating a little flat surface. When I do it on the soft part, each time I pull it across, I'm actually creating a curved surface. So this is going to, like I said, give you a much nicer, rounder sort of shape. I'm just spinning it as I'm going along here, just slowly turning it. I can do the top a bit, but I'm just trying to get rid of all those little flats and bumps and bits and pieces that were caused by going on the hardcore 60 grit sandpaper. I think that's probably close enough to good enough. We're not going for anything too crazy this time. So I'm going to give this a quick wash, and then we will jump onto the opal for the 240 grit. So washing in between grits is quite important, but you don't want to be contaminating, and also washing between stones can be quite important. It's quite important for stopping contamination as well. With these two stones, because I'm actually cutting the turquoise first and moving on to the harder stone, which is the opal, not as big a issue to actually just jump straight onto this one, but it's always good just to do things the right way. And actually, in fact, I think because I'm cutting this more flat face here, I'm actually going to take the Scotch-Brite out for now, and we'll jump back onto that later, I think. But because this is basically flat, let's just give it a go without the softness underneath. Okay, so now that I've got the bulk of the 240 grit cutting done on the opal, I'm actually going to pop the little bit of Scotch-Brite sort of foam under there again now, just because there's a little bit of a curve to the flat there, so this will help get all those little areas that I might have been missing just by doing it on the actual flat surface here. So we're going to go from the 240 onto the 600. So we've given that a quick wash, and I'll just show you here. Okay, so you can see we've got a pretty good finish on that now. It's looking fairly smooth all the way around. So you can see we've got this nice and smooth, got a pretty good profile there. Not perfect, but I think we're right to move on to the next stage now. So we've cleaned off our board, we've cut our new piece, and I've left the Scotch-Brite over there. Okay, we are ready to rock and roll. Turquoise. I think this one's going to turn out quite nicely. But yeah, we'll have to see how we go with the turquoise. But now we've essentially finished the actual cutting side of things. Now I've got my little board here with my little bit of felt. What I got to do next is I have to make a slurry. So we're going to start off with the cerium. Now with the cerium, we can actually just mix that with water. Just going to mix that up by hand. Okay, so I think that's looking pretty good. Now I'm just going to pop it straight onto our little board here. Let's get cracking. Okay, now for the turquoise, I think yeah, it's not too bad, but I think we could probably go better. So we've got a little bit of a shine on there, not looking too bad, but I think we could probably do better. But maybe not with the cerium. So we'll put that one aside for now. And to be honest, I think because we're on the final polish stage and we're going from a soft stone to a hard stone, I'm not going to wash this. I think this should be fine as it is, but let's give it a crack. Okay, so after the cerium polishing, the turquoise is looking pretty good. Opal's looking really nice, but I think we could probably give it a quick go with the diamond powder. I think we can do better on the turquoise, and I kind of like to sometimes just finish off my opals with a little bit of a buff of the diamond powder, just kind of gives that little bit of extra sheen, but otherwise I think we're doing pretty good. Okay, so I've just given them both a quick rinse just to wash off any of the cerium, and I think what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop something underneath there, pop this one down, and we are going to use our second piece of felt. Okay, so now the main difference with the cerium versus the diamond powder is that normally instead of using water, I actually use baby oil to mix up the slurry. Mix that in. Okay, so we've got that nice and mixed up there. Just gonna spread this the same way onto the felt. Okay, so we got a nice bit of diamond paste on there. So, I wonder how much difference it's gonna make in the turquoise. Yeah, okay, that has worked a lot better than the cerium. That's looking really nice now. It's got a much nicer sheen on it there. So, I think I'm going to move on to my little bit of opal. Give it a go. I think that's pretty good. I think we've done alright there. A decent bit of shine. Okay, so I think we've got our polish done. And we're ready to undop, and I guess the opal is actually finished. So, with most glues now, I would probably recommend Googling whatever glue you're going to use, but a lot of the time you can actually just use heat. Now, I haven't actually used this one before for dopping, so I'm probably going to burn my dop sticks a little bit, but applying a little bit of heat. Now, you've got to be very careful with this. I'm just going to use a lighter. You could use a candle, you could use a little burner. But I'm just going to apply just a bit of heat, slowly rotating it. I don't want to like crack the stone because I'm heating it up too fast or anything. But just applying that little bit of heat should soften the glue enough to be able to actually just pop it right off the dop stick. But you really want to be careful with this because some stones will react quite badly to heat. So just do it slowly, be patient, let it come off, and that might be enough. Let's give it a go. Yep, there you are. Just straight off like that. Okay, so this time I'm not going to need this because I'm doing a flat surface, which is the back of the cabochon. So I think we're pretty quick with this one. Just use the 240 to get rid of the glue. I think we're done. That's quite a nice little turquoise cabochon actually. So, we've got our two finished pieces. We've got a couple of comparisons there. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so there we have it. How to cut and polish a cabochon and a window cut without any machines. I think we've done pretty well today. I think I'm pretty happy with the opal. That's got a nice little sort of portrait window cutting into it there. I mean, you've managed to get the signs done quite nicely. And the turquoise, I think that's turned out really nice. One thing to remember, I think the cerium, not the best for your turquoise polish. I think we're gonna have to go with the diamond powder on that one. So that's a 50,000 grit. But as you can see here, I've got a very nice polish just using the 50,000 grit. But yeah, I think it was a bit of a long time coming. I hope you all enjoyed it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe if you can, that always helps. Hit that notification button to find out whenever the new videos come out. And we'll see you next time.